Hello everyone, you will now hear a brief retelling of the film Crows, the sequel. You will find the link to the retelling of Crows, the beginning, in the description. Genji Tako, to become the king of Suzuran school, must defeat the strongest fighter of Orindaman, but once again he was beaten. Over time the school has become even dirtier, and looks like a natural peritonitis. A guy named Kawanishi has just come out of a correctional facility, and immediately went to the grave of the person he killed during one of the school wars. It was the leader of the Hosen school, and now a whole crowd of bald thugs is planning to take revenge for him. Kawanishi ran away and hid behind the backs of the fighters from the Seredzawa gang. The bald guys can't do anything. There is a non-aggression pact between Suzuran and Hosen, and the Crows are not going to betray their comrade, even if he no longer studies here. The leaders of the victorious gang Genji also joined the conflict. The king of Suzuran, without thinking long, resorted to using his fists, thereby breaking the 2-year truce. Well, now he has to deal with everything. The bartender told Genji about that mass brawl when Kawanishi decided to stop the strongest fighter from the rival school using a folding knife. The same bartender was shocked to learn that it was his young interlocutor who broke the truce. Genji's girlfriend Ruka is curious if he has found Ken. Yakuza was supposed to kill the guy, but instead, he became his friend and was executed by his boss Yazaki. But as far as we remember, it was a setup and the gangsters survived. Kawanishi is a finished man with nowhere to go, so he came to Yazaki and offered to kill the boss of the rival gang, Genji's father. They just laughed at him, but then Yazaki gave him the task of finding the grave of the executed Ken. The leader of the Hosen school announced to the fighters that they were at war with Uzuran again. Effeminately, he called the main thug and asked not to go overboard in the fight. Vasio, who had been getting beaten up in Suzuran all year, transferred to Hosen, but conquering the local school also didn't go well. Get lost. Punk. Yes. Former enemies from Suzuran met to negotiate a gang alliance, but the talks failed. The skinheads from Hosen called Tatsuya, the younger brother of the murdered leader, and offered to go to war with them for blood revenge, but he refused. Kawanishi did not find the grave of the executed Yakuza Ken. At the given address, he stumbled not upon a cemetery, but on the bandit himself, who is now in hiding and working in the docks. The two criminals are well acquainted. Kawanishi says he has no regrets about his actions, otherwise, their school would have been destroyed. And what now? Are we to gut people? Ken exclaims in outrage. I was the leader, and it was my duty. There was nothing else to do. He regrets not taking the knife from his friend at that moment. Tamura and Makisi are gathering people into their army. Some scumbag guy calls them losers, for which he is immediately sent to the Devil's Trinity is still maintaining neutrality and does not intend to fight on Genzi's side. Genzi's father, the boss of the Ryusinkai gang, jokingly introduces him to a new mom, some painted drunk girl. The Mikami brothers left to serve the stronger Genzi. They give Tokyo, who had brain surgery, super glue so he can glue his broken skull during the fight. Makise arranged a date. However, every time he thinks of something intimate, he is tormented by bouts of diarrhea. The Gopnik bought condoms and met with his girlfriend. Because of this, he couldn't attend the general meeting. Makisi saved a schoolgirl from a rubber snake that he had placed earlier, and now he is brutally beating her. Next, he suggests the girl relax by the bank of the stinky river. The fool pulled out condoms and was about to pounce on the poor girl. But she was saved by other Gopniks. Grilla, what is that floating? I wanted to use these rubber bands after I scared Kyoka with the poisonous snake, but now they have floated away. Makisi no longer has a girlfriend. A crowd of bald-headed men attacked Judoka Tsutsumoto and his friends. Ryu turned out to be too fast for him. Mordatov really needs to be stopped so he doesn't kill his enemies. Mordatov and Takagi were also surrounded on all sides. The same happened with the other generals of Suzuran. No matter how good fighters they were, the numerical advantage decided the outcome, and they were all brutally beaten. Only Makise and Vazio were left standing. The latter pulled out a knife, but the leader, Narumi, stopped him. Men fight only with their fists. We'll meet when you're in better shape. I'm as fit as a fiddle right now. A real man. Ryo wanted to play football with the enemy's head again, but his boss pulled him back. Idzaki warns Genzi to be careful. If they take him down, the whole school will collapse. They need to somehow unite Suzurana, otherwise the skinheads will crush everyone. The sadist Ryo sent Tsutsumoto to intensive care. He will spend about 3 months in the hospital. Idzaki challenged Serizawa to a fight. If he loses, he will join Genzi, but he turned out to be weaker than the more experienced fighter. Kawanishi came to boss Yazaki again and asked to be accepted into the Yakuza. But he is refused again. However, he is surrounded by other clan members who suggest that he still take down the boss of the Ryusinkai, then they will accept him. Sad Genzi is drinking. Below, his even more drunken father is waiting. Why is his son so unhappy? After all, he has conquered Suzurana. The father teaches Genzi how to fight properly and simultaneously hits his son. Another piece of fatherly advice. The guy will be strong when he thinks about his people, not just about himself. The hand keeps trying to get close to the bully, but he, as always, brushes it off. Narumi ambushed the Zuran member on the street and lit a cigarette for him. Genzi doesn't even suspect that this is the word. A servile young man, his main enemy. On the way to the car, Genzi's father stepped aside to urinate in an alley. Kavanisi jumped at him and fired several shots. The boss is seriously injured, and the whole gang gathered in the common ward. Genzi also arrived. The frightened Kavanisi received a call from the Yakuza and was ordered to go to the hospital to finish off the injured boss. Ken learned about what happened from the news. Narumi continues to reflect on real men.
And how do I feel about all this? The smell of a real man. I'm not gay.
He doesn't understand why Tatsuya doesn't want to take revenge for his brother. According to him, for now, he wants to focus on strengthening Hosen. Another battle between the big guy Rindaman and Genzi predictably ended with the latter being beaten. Although the redhead's face was already bruised all over, Genzi only came to his senses at night on the roof. Here, the crazy Vasya ran to the school with canisters and set the gym on fire. At the scene, Hosen's lighter was found. Everyone expected Genzi to go crazy and immediately run to take revenge. But after his father's injury, all of this is not so important to him. Tokyo grappled with him. He hit several times and demands that he hit back, despite the hole in his skull. But Seresdava did not allow this. Later, he tells Genzi that Suzurana was almost united before his arrival, and he broke it into pieces. Just strength is not enough to manage a school. Matoba beat up Vasya for what he had done. At that moment, Genzi approached Hosen with his generals. Finally, he met Narumi and scheduled a slaughter between the schools for tomorrow. Now, all the forces of Suzurana need to be gathered, which means convincing the newcomers. Genzi addresses all the students over the loudspeaker. He shares that he has always wanted to surpass his father and that now he is in the hospital with a gunshot wound to the abdomen. Right now, he wants to take his advice. Everyone has their own path, and one must never stop. Tomorrow, he is going to war against Hosen, and he needs the strength of every student. The frightened Kawanisi showed up at the hospital. He saw which ward a group of bandits came out of. He went inside, pulled out a gun, and aimed it at the boss of Ryusinkai. At the last moment, Ken stopped him and shielded the Yakuza with himself. He persuades his younger friend to reconsider. Of course, starting over is no longer possible, and one will have to eat dirt to survive, but it's still not worth completely flushing life down the toilet. He is ready to help the guy, but first, the weapon needs to be lowered. Kavanisi was immediately grabbed, along with Ken, who was part of the enemy clan. Suddenly, the boss came to his senses. He thanks Ken for saving his life, and for that, he will be released. Only 40 fighters gathered in the schoolyard. The skinheads have already significantly thinned their ranks. The newcomers also approached, led by the Devil's Trinity. But they immediately fell back, assessing their strength. They don't want to die for nothing. In that case, 3 Hosen fighters face 1 crow. Genzi commands to disperse. They had already lost even before the fight began. The Mikami brothers change their shoes again and return to Shirezaba. They suggest that Tokyo should try the super glue after all. Everyone guessed that Genzi decided to go against all alone. At the stadium, he was met by over 100 bald fighters. Genzi ran and burst into the huge crowd. After kicking around a bit, he waited for reinforcements. On one side, his people were coming, and on the other, the army of Shirezaba. The Mikami brothers appreciated the helmet that Tokyo found for himself. So, who here messed with our boss? Thus, Shirezaba finally acknowledged that Genzi had become the main one in Suzurana. The young Tatsue did not want to be present at the slaughter and left. The crowd in black and the crowd in white mixed together. Former enemies are now fighting back to back. The Mikami brothers took it upon themselves to protect Tokyo's head. The big guy Motobo is scattering the crows. In contrast, Makise is actively taking action. The final fight is set to take place on the roof, so Genzi is gradually making his way there. But the crows were overwhelmed by reinforcements that descended from the upper floors. Narumi is also gradually making his way to the roof, scattering the crows along the way. Read. What? Read aloud? Entrance? Only in changeable shoes? Where are your slippers, you bastard? Makis activated Berserker mode and took on about 20 people. They burst into the classroom, where Narumi was sitting and eating his lunch. He wanted to fight a real man one-on-one. The thug Ri is taking down everyone in his path. No matter how many bald dummies you beat up, it seems like there are still more. Most of the crows stayed on the floor to hold them back and allow Genzi to ascend higher. Makise and Narumi beat each other to a pulp. In the end, it was the hairy one who came out on top, and the big guy was knocked out. Tokyo had his protection taken away and was immediately shot in the head. Additionally, the guy also hit his head on the floor. He decided not to patch up his skull, and, disregarding his health, rushed back into the fight. On the next floor, Genzi is trying to stop Motobo and his squad. They needed to clear the exit to the roof, which was blocked by chairs. A little higher up, instead of another crowd, only one thug, Ryo, was waiting for Shirizawa and Genzi. Shirizawa wanted to deal with the patched-up one himself and take revenge for his friend Tsutsumoto. Finally, Genzi found himself on the roof, where Narumi was already waiting for him. Both were seriously battered. Narumi had long dreamed of conquering Tsutsuran, and now he was one step away from it, but achieving it is not so easy. Ryo turned out to be a very serious opponent, but Shirizawa has a steel head. He endures blow after blow. However, he staggered Ryo with a single hit. Then he finished him off in midair. On the roof, Narumi cannot overcome Genzi, and then their fight was interrupted by Vasya. He again. Ova pulled out a knife, but Tatsuya skillfully disarmed him and took him down. Shirizawa also made it to the roof. It's time to end all this. The two leaders continue to pummel each other, forgetting about defense. In the end, it was Narumi who ended up on the ground. Tatsuya looks at the battered Genzi. One day, he will have to fight him too. And the bloodied crows return to their nest in victory. Vasya wanted to go back and picked up a black jacket. We learned that Ken was allowed to take Kawanishi with him. All our heroes have finally finished school. But one question still remains unanswered. Will Genzi be able to beat Rindoman? This is his last chance. Shirizawa has finally placed his bets on him.
Is today the last chance? Yes. I decided to give myself a graduation gift.
After a couple of blows, the red-haired giant finally went down on one knee. But who emerged victorious from the fight? We will never know.